So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this cathedral. And of course, this lesson is totally secular. But now what I want to start working on is I want to start working on kind of these structural supports that are going into the recess next to the pews. And so essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to work our way from the middle out to the sides and then further into the back. And so I just want to make the rough assets that I need to get all this stuff to work. And then we'll do things as cleanly as we can. And again, because these are block-ins, I'm not intending any of these pieces to be like final shapes. I'm just trying to get the broad overview. So, okay. Now, the first thing that I need to do is I need to get ready for the wall panels. So, first thing I know is that there's actually these square wall panels that I need to create that essentially, these square columns that essentially match the circular columns. And I just want to make those really quickly. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to make a simple box shape. I'm going to turn on the grid snap by hitting S or holding X if I'm in Maya. And I'm going to drag this up. So I'm going to have a... right now the grid snap is to 2 units, and I actually don't want that. So I'm probably going to type the length and width to 1, and I'm going to see how that looks. And then... okay, so these pieces actually need to be roughly the same size as the cylinders. So I am going to extend that size a little bit. So they will be, I think, again, I use that law of like making things 1, 2, or 1.5, whichever works. And it looks like 1.5 is actually the right size for this, because when we set 0.75 before, that was actually the radius. So it was actually the total is 1.5. So this is exactly the correct size now. Now I'm going to snap this back over here. And I'm actually going to make a slightly unintuitive decision, which is I know for a fact that I'm only going to be using these pieces in places where they are actually against a wall. And they actually extend out reasonably far from the wall, but just because I know this is going to be the case, I kind of want to jump ahead and make these pieces so that they are only half of a column unit. And this is not necessarily required in all cases, but I want to kind of show you how this works, because it's something you'll often want to do to optimize your assets so that you're not making a bunch of geometry that you're never going to show anywhere. So I'm selecting the straight up and down edges here. I'm going to make a connect in the middle. I'm going to switch to faces, and I'm going to delete the ones in the back. And then essentially, what I will do from there is I will just drag out copies of these to match all of the placement in the areas in this first section. And I'm not going to worry about the back section right now. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag one over to the other side. Copy the instance. And this one I'm just going to rotate around in 180 degrees. And I'm going to type that in explicitly to make sure that's correct. And then I'm just going to copy that back as well. So I'm going to make, and actually I can just do the number of copies thing here. And then that way, because that way I know that I'm not going to end up having to model sections of this that are way out of view, that are clearly something I'm never going to be able to see. And then I can actually go in, because like I think this is a little bit overly simplistic. I'm going to go ahead and make the top section a little bit more detailed. So I know that there's actually a couple of indentations that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the polygon modeling. I'm going to go and create a Swift loop. I'm going to create 1 and 2 is probably okay. And then I'm going to grab the faces at the top here. Oops. With the snapping turned off, you got to be careful with snapping with scale. I'm going to scale this out slightly in the y-axis here. In Maya, that would be in the z-axis. Then I'm going to select all of the edges going horizontally. I'm going to go to connect. I'm going to make 2 connect loops, and I'm going to pinch them out slightly. So I'm going to pinch, in this case, I'm going to pinch it to about 50. And then I'm going to switch to faces. Select all of the faces in the front. And I'm going to extrude that out a bit. And there we go. That probably should be pretty good. And then the last bit I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top piece, and I'm going to extrude that, but I'm going to use the extrude options so that I can define it. And in this case, I'm going to extrude by local normal, which is pretty much the default option in the Maya extrude. So you probably don't have to worry about that too much. If you're using Maya, you can just basically pull out on one axis. And then that makes a piece that's very similar to the piece that I'm going to need. And I can make more edits to this. So like, for example, I think that I actually want to pull these front pieces out a little bit further. So I'm going to grab a selection. And actually, I'm not going to grab these. Oops. Forgot that Alt and not Control is how you subtract selection. And then I'm going to use the Move tool. I'm just going to move that out a little bit so it's a little bit more at an angle, which is a little bit more accurate with the piece that I'm looking at.